Today I'm going to talk about Vincent van Gogh's self-portrait. Look at this portrait of himself. What sort of artist do you think he was? Do you think he was a realism artist or a impressionism artist? Or maybe other kinds like a romanticism artist? Or maybe he's just doodling, which is like not really possible, but still. Well, for your information, he is a impressionist just like Monet and the others. In fact, he was inspired by Monet, and he inspired many. The famous thing about him is that he was not successful in his lifetime. Unlike most artists, he only sold one painting, one and only one, in all his lifetime. So he was born with a childhood that did not have color. But he liked to paint. And when he grew up, he moved to France, the south part of France. And there he painted many and lots of self-portraits. Which you might be thinking, why? Well, it's not just for practicing or for telling who he was, that there wasn't a camera or something like that. But yes, it was for practicing and showing who he was. In fact, most of his, some of his self-portraits that are not as famous or significant are painted in the back of another painting, which proves that he was practicing. And yes, it was supposed to tell who he was. You must have seen this portrait somewhere before. Even if you didn't, you do now. This is one of the self-portraits he says he considers as his most successful, which means what he means is that this is the most successful self-portrait he's ever done. That represents himself best. And you could think that he thought he was a professional, successful artist. And he painted one like that. He painted himself with a 3/4 pose, an easel, and his palette and brushes. And you can see here, with red letters, he signed his name. Somewhere here. Yeah. So, he considered himself as a successful artist, and he painted himself like who he thought he was. So he says that this portrait was the most successful, meaning that it was the it best represented him. Well, but what he did not know clearly was that he wasn't that successful, at least not in his lifetime. In fact, his art only became successful a whole century after he was dead, which is very sad. So, if you look closely enough, you would see that he used a lot of different colors to paint everything. His shirt, his beard, his skin. And if you notice that his skin has a little bit of green tone or color, then that's because you're right. It's a very common technique to paint a thin layer of green tone before painting the skin color. And you can also see that his beard is ginger colored. And if you look closely enough, you would see that many parts of himself was painted in different colors, like the shirt. It's got tons of different colors like blue, green, yellow. And then if you look at his eyes, you could see purple, green, blue, and brown. And also his hair, his brows, his palette, his hands. Everything is so colorful. Well, this is a self-portrait without an ear, which means he has a damaged ear, so he has to wrap it up. And it's the painting has got an interesting story, a shocking one, in fact, behind it. Look closely. You cannot just see Van Gogh, the one with the green shirt and a blue hat, and most importantly, which is very sadly but true, his bandaged ear. You can also see that there's a Japanese print in the back and an easel which look a little like a cross. And the reason for the cross, for the Japanese print, for his damaged ear, it's a lot of mystery. But it's mainly because that, first you have to know why Van Gogh moved to South France. Well, for the noble reason was that he wanted to start his own studio, his own art school, or like a club for painting for artists who like to paint Impressionism. But sadly, there was only one artist or painter who would like to join him. And it was Gogh. So they worked together in the famous Yellow House. But unfortunately, working with Gogh for Van Gogh was a very big mistake. And Van Gogh moved to South France, not just because that he wanted to start his studio in the South, but also because of that legendary beauty of the women there. Van Gogh wanted to find love. Well, still, sadly and unfortunately, their beauty was legendary. In real life, they were grumpy. And also they weren't patient. And they weren't interested in Van Gogh at all. But Gauguin was everything Van Gogh wasn't. He was experiment and already successful. And he also, simply goes a lot well with those women. But they were partners. So why did Van Gogh, why did he cut off his ear? It all has to do with his religious Gauguin and the woman there. And another thing that has to do with it is bullfighting. Well, there's the man who waves the red flag and fights with the bull. And if that person, the man, wins at the end, then he gets 1 year from the bull he fought. And then he would toss it into the crowd to the most beautiful girl he could see. So Van Gogh he was very upset in the first place already. And also, he was a Christian. In fact, his father was the minister of a Dutch church. And so he was brought up and he grown up in a very religious atmosphere. And as I mentioned, he moved to South France to find a woman. And, he didn't succeed. You can say that. He was the most, he's the artist who had the most unsuccessful life, but is very famous now. It's very sad. So why did he cut off his ear? 'Cause Gauguin had a lot more luck with women. And about bullfighting is that Van Gogh didn't had any, he didn't succeed, whether with his partner or with women, or, he only sold one painting, and that's very sad. So he was basically saying that he was the bull, the one being defeated, and so he cut off his ear like what the bullfighter would do after defeating the bull, and then he gave it to a prostitute at the brothel who fainted when she saw it. So that's not the point. So Van Gogh was he was a really sad story. And the cross in the back of this painting that is here on the easel, which is the easel, is a symbol that Van Gogh is actually comparing his pain and his suffering to Christ. And the Japanese poster with 3 woman in the front is representing the three Marys. So that's about this. That's the story, mainly the story about this portrait with a bandaged ear. He had to fight with Gogh over weeks, and then, well, they just got in a fight, and then they just didn't like each other. Because Van Gogh thought that Gauguin was everything Van Gogh wasn't. And that's why he made a really big mistake. So do you remember this portrait? The one that Van Gogh said it's his most successful and the one that best represents himself? I did sort of like a parody, not exactly, but it looks like this. I just basically try to speak for that painting, and some are really funny. Like here, it says, "I am working on a portrait of myself painting myself, painting myself, painting myself," which is the one you're looking at right now. Well, that's not the point. The point is, I did this because I wanted to make sure that I know about why he painted so many portraits and why he said that this one was his most successful, which is because he painted himself as a serious, successful painter, which is who he thought he was, which is who he unfortunately wasn't. And I also used words from his letter to his young brother, which is like the "I express the thought of a brow something," that one. And it's just letters he wrote to his brother about the painting he is doing, and Van Gogh really likes to use contrast colors like orange, blue, and yellow, purple. And he also likes to use very thick layer of paint, and you can see the significant brushstrokes, and also they're painted in very different shapes, like the dots, short stripes, parallel marks, lined up straight radiating from a point, or there are even comma-shaped marks, swirly strokes, angle lines, cross hatches, and he just really used a lot of different materials, not as in the paint he used, but as in the shapes and the colors he used. And he is really a great artist, but he was not seen that way in the past. So that's why he is considered one of those modern artists. And he is also famous for somehow for his mental illness, which is very funny. But so he was sick and he just needed some sort of treatment and other stuff. Well, it's just really not, his life just was really unsuccessful. That's it for Vincent van Gogh's self-portraits.